Worries about the new residential recycling rules, with the system set to be overhauled next month. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Some older residents in Thunder Bay are expressing concerns about the new GFL recycling bins. The 360-liter wheeled containers will go into use at the start of July.
But several people have contacted our newsroom saying the bins are too big and heavy to move to the curb. The company says they'll work with individuals having difficulty using them. Jaden Billick reports.
Over the past month, these two-sided recycling carts have been delivered free of charge to thousands of households around the city, in preparation for the switchover from blue bags on July 1st. 82-year-old Barb Haidu proudly lives in her own home on Crown Street, tending to her garden and renting out her upstairs and basement apartments. As a landlord, her address received 3 bins. But Haidu says there's no way that she'll be able to move hers down the stairs to her front door after they've been emptied.
I have little tricks like throwing the laundry bag down and then walking down myself and stuff like that. But for me to attempt to move those bins up and down the stairs is literally impossible. I have contacted GFL last week, and they said they would get back to me, but they haven't.
Haidu was just one of several seniors and people with mobility issues who have contacted our newsroom, expressing concerns about the size of the recycling carts and how they'll get them to the curb and back, especially in the winter months.
Well, it's a humongous sized bin, and it would be such a struggle, and I can see the bin coming down by itself, and that would be the best case scenario. I could see the bin coming down with me attached to it, and that would be the worst case scenario. The bins are extremely heavy, like I can't lift this bin.
A statement released by GFL's vice president says, "We appreciate there may be accessibility concerns, and we will be working with residents to make any necessary provisions on a case-by-case basis. If residents require assistance, they can contact GFL's customer service team at 1-844-870-4351. Jaden Billick, TBT News.
A joint forces investigation headed up by the OPP has led to the arrest of 8 people in Thunder Bay and the confiscation of drugs and 2 illegal handguns. 3 search warrants were executed in the south end of the city last Thursday. Besides the 2 guns, officers also seized ammunition, 300 grams of crack cocaine and other drugs, 10 cell phones, and around $25,000 in cash. 2 of the 8 suspects are from Thunder Bay, while the others are from Southern Ontario and Quebec. They face a total of 72 charges for drug and weapons offenses.
The province's Special Investigations Unit is looking into an incident in Thunder Bay, which left a man with serious injuries. At around 12:20 yesterday afternoon, plainclothes city police officers attempted to arrest a 50-year-old man wanted on several warrants. The SIU says he fled on foot, and the man was later caught and handcuffed in the 100 block of South Cumberland Street. He was taken to the police station and then to the regional hospital. The man was diagnosed with a serious injury and remains in hospital. The SIU is asking anyone who may have witnessed the arrest or has video of it to contact their office.
Well, residents across the region may have noticed a heightened military presence this week.
A number of military branches and their civilian partners are involved in an annual search and rescue training exercise based at the Thunder Bay Airport. Justin Hardy has the story.
Chinthex is the name of the search and rescue exercise put on by the 435 Transport and Rescue Squadron. It saw a number of personnel with simulated injuries brought to various points in the region throughout the week to be found and rescued by those taking part. Participants include squadrons from the Royal Canadian Air Force, federal and provincial police agencies, Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, Orange, MNR, and other local agencies. A number of U.S. Air Force squadrons and the U.S. Coast Guard also took part. Major Curtis Cusack says getting crews used to working together is essential.
Interoperability is key. We share our coverage of the Great Lakes with our counterparts in the U.S. Coast Guard to the south, as well as on each coast, the Pacific and Atlantic, we share with the U.S. Coast Guard as well.
Personnel are not the only ones being tested on their ability to operate in the region. The exercise also gives crews the chance to make sure equipment and vehicles are performing as needed.
So with all the effort that's been put in thus far for the exercise, between the personnel, the budget, it's extremely important that we capitalize on all the training opportunities that we can. So to have serviceable airplanes at all times to make sure we can meet the objectives of the exercise is paramount.
Once this year's training exercise is complete, crews will return to duty. Canadian Armed Forces search and rescue crews are on standby 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Premier Doug Ford has shuffled his cabinet this evening, following the last day of the legislative session.
Details are still trickling in about who is on the move. Now, this all comes as MPPs get set to begin their summer break. CTV's Siobhan Morris tells us what happened today at Queen's Park ahead of that cabinet shuffle.
Like rowdy kids waiting for the final bell on the last day of school,
The Speaker has the ability to send people home a little early.
this is the last question period before MPPs return to their communities for the summer.
The session might be ending, but people's problems aren't.
The opposition accusing the government of losing touch with Ontarians.
Instead of hiring more doctors or building more housing or strengthening our local schools, we've got backroom deals, RCMP criminal investigations, and hundreds of millions of dollars wasted breaking contracts.
Including the cash being spent to get booze in corner stores more than a year early.
Tell me how the party that prides itself on fiscal responsibility is running a $9.8 billion deficit.
The finance minister counters with what he says shows their approach is working.
The credit rating agency, DBRS, upgraded Ontario's rating to AA.
And progressive conservatives argue the province is in better shape than before they took office.
We're building hospitals, long-term care homes. We're rebuilding our education system. The job isn't done, Mr. Speaker, but we are going to continue on the path of rebuilding the province of Ontario.
MPPs are scheduled to return to Queen's Park sometime after Labor Day, but that could change if the government wants to pass back-to-work legislation in the event of a TTC strike. The Premier and Cabinet ministers have remained tight-lipped about that possibility. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
For the first time in about 5 years, petroleum is being shipped through the Port of Thunder Bay. And that's not the only news. The port this season it's off to a strong start. 2024 is shaping up to be a very strong year for cargo shipments.
Well, I'll tell you what, the port has seen its best start to the season up to the end of May that we've seen in over 30 years.
Port CEO Chris Heikkinen says the local elevators moved over 920,000 metric tons of grain in May. That's the second highest monthly total in the last 2 years. As for that petroleum shipment, Heikkinen credits the local Suncor terminal with making the capital and safety improvements required.
It's the petroleum products that we're putting in our vehicles every day. And it's nice to see that has shifted back to the marine mode. That product was being handled on land, and marine is a very safe and environmentally friendly way to ship any product, and so we're happy to see that has come back.
May was also a banner month for potash shipments, with nearly 260,000 tons coming through the port, or 5 times the amount shipped last May. Coal was up 50%, and the overall tonnage for the year to date is up 30% over 2023.
Thunder Bay Police are expanding their drone program into their primary response unit and training 8 more officers to operate them.
The police force provided a demonstration of how the equipment works during the 4-day hands-on training program. Nev Van Pelt was there and brings us the story.
The Thunder Bay Police Service currently has 12 officers who are trained pilots, with 8 more in the training process. The program is a combination of theory and hands-on training, and Traffic Constable Tom Armstrong spoke about what the trainees will be learning.
There's a lot of rules regarding where we fly drones, how we get authorization. So there's a lot of training and teaching on that to make sure that everybody's well informed on the legality and doing it properly and safely. So there's a fair bit of that, and then also just kind of the documentation and record keeping that we're required to have. So our officers are learning that, and then also the hands-on flying. So we've started with some very basic applications, and then we're kind of expanding as we go. Today we're going to get into some realistic scenarios, things we've encountered in real life here. We're going to mock those up.
In the past, the drone program was dedicated to traffic and a few other specialty units, but it's now being expanded into the primary response unit. The inspector in charge of primary response, Joe Dampier, spoke about how this expansion will benefit the police force.
We'll have it out on the road. Officers will be able to access it much quicker. Things like missing people. In the past, we've had to call officers out who are at home. This also goes to officer wellness, because instead of officers who have already worked a day shift now having to come in during the night and then having to go back to work again in the day shift, they are on the road working and they'll be able to go out and respond to whatever's happening.
The technology has helped the police service in many ways, and Armstrong said the drones are used on a regular basis, with the biggest application being crime scene and collision scene documentation, as well as missing persons and subject searches.
It gives you a wonderful perspective. We can capture incredible high-quality images of an entire scene to help us document that really well. So that's something that gives us better evidence, and it also we're far more efficient. So we can process a collision scene far faster with these and get better information than we historically have been able to.
Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
More than 100 students graduated today from Oshkosh Pimashawin, the Wenjack Education Institute. The graduation is a momentous occasion for the students who've had to overcome long odds. 102 students received diplomas today, a lot of them hailing from remote First Nations, where there are major barriers to getting a high school education, let alone post-secondary. The Institute offers a number of college-accredited programs that can be mostly completed online. Dory Gray earned her business diploma program from her home in Cat Lake. She says it would have taken her a lot longer to get there without Oshni Wenjack.
And some of the challenges I know people face is they can't find a home to come out into the urban areas, and financial, and also the kids, because I myself have 2 kids, so it's hard to move out here, and live out here for a few years.
I am very proud of our students. It's not an easy learning journey. There's a lot of steps. We do a blended delivery model, so they come on campus for 2 weeks, they go online, they have families, they have jobs, and this model works for our students. So we're very happy today that we're able to celebrate their success.
President Laurie Deschamps says many students have jobs and families, and their innovative model makes it possible for students to pursue an education without having to leave their communities and support systems behind.
Magnus Theatre is getting ready to host their annual 10 by 10 Short Play Festival. The 10-minute plays, written by 10 local playwrights and performed by over 30 local actors, will be taking the big stage starting tomorrow night. The 10 by 10 serves as a developmental opportunity for the playwrights, directors, and actors here in our city to grow their strengths as they bring these short plays to life. The festival will be presented on Friday evening with 2 more shows on Saturday at 2 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. One of the directors is Katia Arifin, and she shares a few words about her show.
So it's a show about a single mom and her 3 crazy kids, and just a single afternoon where they're all trying to get their lives in order. It's a really cool mix. We have some people who've been acting in Thunder Bay for a long time, people who've done a lot of community theater, people who've done costumes and backstage, and we have some people who've never acted before in a production outside of high school or middle school, and it's just really cool to see them develop.
Yeah, the 10 by 10 is great. This is the 3rd year we've run it as part of our programming, and we're incredibly proud to have this important community event as something that we facilitate. And it's just a real good opportunity for local members of our theatre community, both on stage and off stage, whether that's actors, directors, playwrights, everyone who's involved in theatre locally.
Tickets are available on the Magnus website as well as at the box office, but organizers are urging the public to pre-buy their tickets as there will be limited supply at the door.
Yeah, that's always a great event. I was there
Absolutely.
last year, plan to go again this weekend.
Yeah?
And Fiona, as we turn our attention to the weather, last year I was in there and the tent was blowing around all over the place. It felt like it might come down. Fortunately, it held. We have not had the best weather so far this week. I'm hoping it's a little better for the weekend.
Well, I'm hoping that you're not going to be caught underneath a falling tent this weekend. So far, the winds have been light. I can say at least that has been the case. And we did top out with a high of 18. That's after an early morning low of 9. But we had periods of rain off and on throughout the day. And with the systems that are moving through, there's still a chance of it lingering a little bit longer than some of us would have liked to have seen. If you want to see what it looked like, that's where we got those periods of rain. At this point, it's just little areas where there is still a little bit of precipitation, but for the most part, it's breaking up, it's weakening, but it's still kind of there. So that's why at this hour we still have some rain in Red Lake. They had a brief reprieve this afternoon after a rainy morning, but now they've got the showers back. Temperatures really didn't move much today. A whole 2-degree difference between their low of 10 and their high of 12, which is what they're at right now. In Fort Frances, well, they're currently at 14 under cloudy skies. As we head to the northeast, Armstrong sitting at a mild 17, Nipigon at 14. Greenstone had a couple of brief showers, but for the most part, it's just been a very gray day there at 14, but they actually topped out at 18 a couple of hours ago. And temperatures basically from Greenstone and eastward have been seeing the temperatures drop in the last few hours. We were comfortably in the double digits, in the mid-teens for both Marathon and Wawa about 3 hours ago, and the temperatures have already started to plummet. They're down into the single digits. Sault Ste. Marie started out with partly cloudy skies, and then the rain moved in 2 hours ago, and now they've got a bit of a thunderstorm popping up at 13 Celsius, while they had a high of 20 at 1 o'clock. So there is a lot of very cool air coming in with this system as it moves through Lake Superior. Here in the city of Thunder Bay tonight, we're going to see a low of 9 once again. And as I said, there's still a chance of rain. Not a huge one, but it is 40% chance. That's just slightly less than flipping a coin. So Mother Nature is keeping us on our toes. But we are going to see the winds pick up from the northwest up to 50 kilometers per hour. That trend is going to continue overnight and into tomorrow morning. Friday's going to be a little bit blustery, chance of some rain. We're hoping the winds will calm down as we head into the weekend, but there's still a little bit of a chance of rain for the first half of the weekend, possibly even into Sunday. So may not be quite as promising a weekend as we would hope.
Okay, and I should clarify, Fiona, it was safe. The tent was safe.
It was just the sound effect. It was just adding to it.
The wind was
added drama.
awfully blustery outside.
It
yes,
added
it
drama.
certainly added drama. And yes, I plan to be there this weekend, whether it is windy, rainy, or not. All right, let's turn our attention to international news now. Today marks the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, a major military operation in World War II that Canada played a crucial role in. There were events to commemorate that in France, featuring a number of world leaders and veterans. There were also events here in Canada. We'll have more on that when your news hour continues after the break.
Describe the immensity of the debt we owe you.
Today marks 80 years since the D-Day invasion, the military operation for the Allied forces, Canada, Britain, and the United States.
A delegation of Canadian D-Day veterans traveled to France to commemorate loss and victory on the same beach they liberated. CTV's Joy Malbin is at Juno Beach with more.
On a day to celebrate the last living witnesses to a battle that arguably changed the world, there was symbolism and skydivers, but only a handful of Canadian veterans who were actually there. Boots on the ground, storming the beaches of Normandy, on the sea and in the air. Their average age now, 100. Greeted by royalty.
Standing here today in peaceful silence, it is almost impossible to grasp the courage it would have taken to run into the fury of battle that very day.
Canadians pushing, persisting, determined in a campaign to free France, but it came at a terrible cost. 359 Canadians killed on D-Day alone. Thousands more in the battles to come found their resting place here.
There are no words to describe the immensity of the debt we owe you.
The Prime Minister greeting Canada's most decorated veteran, General Richard Romer. 13 veterans in military uniform have made the trip. Captain Bill Wilson was part of the Allied landings in Normandy. He remembers.
It was a bloody shame, all those kids getting killed, I'll tell you. Sitting out there on the water, seeing all those landing craft going in to land on the beach, knowing damn well that the Germans were waiting for them by that time.
What an honor to see you here. This likely their last chance to return to the beaches to remember those kids and the soldiers that were lost. A last opportunity perhaps to celebrate the few survivors left as their memory becomes history, passing that torch of remembrance to a future generation. Joy Malbin, CTV News, Juno Beach.
This comes at a time when it seems it's more important than ever to remember the lessons of World War II amid new threats to global peace and stability. CTV's Judy Trin has more.
80 years ago, they stormed Normandy's beaches and helped liberate France and Western Europe. Today, 70 returned to take part in D-Day celebrations and were honored as heroes.
You had dreams, plans, and a future, and you left it all behind, crossed the ocean and landed on the coast of France 80 years ago. You took all the risks for our independence and our freedom. We won't forget that.
More than 20 heads of state marked this pivotal moment in history when Nazi Germany was defeated. But the devastation of the Second World War hasn't deterred new threats from emerging.
It is threatened by aggressors who want to redraw borders. It is threatened by demagoguery, misinformation, disinformation, foreign interference. We must all continue to stand for democracy day in and day out.
It's clear who these allies are standing with now. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky was invited to the anniversary, but not Russian President Vladimir Putin, even though Soviet forces helped defeat the Nazis during the Second World War. U.S. President Joe Biden likens Putin to a tyrant.
The United States and NATO and a coalition of more than 50 countries standing strong with Ukraine. We will not walk away.
What many leaders have emphasized here is the need for strong alliances to promote peace. That's a message they'll take with them to the G7 summit next week, when once again they will try to present a strong, united front to end the war in Ukraine and in Gaza. Judy Trin, CTV News, Normandy, France.
Bad news for millions of commuters in Canada's largest city. The union representing Toronto Transit Commission workers says it doesn't look like a strike will be avoided. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
Uncertainty looming over a possible TTC strike as negotiations come down to the wire.
People need to get to work. Not everyone has the privilege of working from home. It can be very chaotic.
The TTC and Amalgamated Transit Union remain at the bargaining table, but ATU Local 113 President Marvin Alford says negotiations are at an impasse.
We have a situation right now where the TTC is bargaining not to get a deal. It seems as though they're bargaining to have the inevitable, that us walking out, and we will be walking out at midnight and taking our labor services away, because this is what it seems like the TTC is trying to do.
Wages, benefits, and job security remain the major sticking points.
They're bargaining as though we do not have the right to strike. I can assure you, we fought long and hard for that right to strike.
More than 11,000 bus drivers, streetcar and subway operators are set to walk off the job at 12:01 a.m. Friday. The TTC chair remains optimistic a strike can be averted.
There's a deadline, and it really focuses the mind. We suspect they're going to go right up until the deadline, maybe even a couple hours past, but we think we're going to get there. We think we're in good shape.
A sentiment echoed by Mayor Olivia Chow.
They are at the bargaining table across the street, which is great. They are talking. I hope they are making progress. I have faith that they would work things out, I hope.
But the union doesn't share that optimism.
We're tired of talking. I guess there's progress in their minds. Maybe they know where their end point's going to be. It'd be nice if they enlightened us.
Transit riders have been warned to plan alternative means of transportation.
So I work from home on Fridays, so I'll be fine. Otherwise, I'll ride my bike to work.
Either Uber or just get a ride.
In the parts of the city where people really can't do anything except drive because of the way the infrastructure is built, that might be an issue.
With just hours left to reach a deal. Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
And Canadian border workers will be in a legal strike position tomorrow. Because they're deemed an essential service, they aren't able to walk off the job, so work to rule could be a possibility. That has manufacturing companies in border communities concerned.
Border is a critical link to us being successful as a manufacturer in Canada. We've got product crossing the border every